There's a paradox in the silence of this moment. You're listening to these words, breathing, perhaps feeling your heart beating in your chest, and at this very second, you're dying. Not in some distant future, not in decades from now, but right now. Each breath you take is one less breath in the totality of your life. Each heartbeat is a countdown, and yet somehow this truth that should terrify us becomes the most liberating realization we can ever have. Raymond Moody spent decades studying those who stood at the threshold between life and death, those who glimpsed beyond the veil and returned. What they discovered wasn't fear or darkness, but an overwhelming sense of peace and understanding. They realized something profound. Death isn't the opposite of life. It's the companion that gives life its meaning. It's the shadow that makes the light visible. Think about this for a moment. If you knew you were immortal, if every day stretched into infinity without end, would you cherish the morning sun the same way? Would you hold your loved ones as tightly? Would you feel the urgency to speak your truth, to live your purpose, to love without reservation? It's precisely because our time is limited that each moment becomes precious. Right now, as you hear these words, cells in your body are dying and being reborn. Your thoughts from just seconds ago have already died, replaced by new ones. The person you were when you started listening to this is already gone, transformed into who you are now. Death isn't just an event at the end of life. It's a process, woven into every moment of existence. The ancient philosophers understood this. They practiced memento mori, the remembrance of death, not as a morbid exercise, but as a key to awakening. When you truly understand that you're dying, something remarkable happens. The trivial falls away. The masks you wear begin to dissolve. The fears that paralyze you lose their power. Those who have experienced near-death states often return with a startling clarity. They describe how their entire life flashed before them, not as a random sequence of events, but as a tapestry where every thread had meaning. They saw how every act of kindness rippled out, how every moment of authentic connection created eternal bonds, how every choice shaped not just their life, but the lives of countless others. What if you could access that clarity now without having to stand at death's door? What if the awareness of your mortality could become your greatest teacher, your most faithful guide? This is what the mystics and sages have been pointing to for millennia. When you befriend death, you befriend life. Consider the last time you were truly present. Perhaps it was watching a sunset, holding someone's hand, or experiencing a moment of profound beauty. In those instances, time seemed to stop. The past and future dissolved, leaving only the eternal now. This is what death teaches us, that the present moment is all we ever have, all we ever will have. The fear of death is really the fear of life unlived. It's the terror of reaching the end and realizing we never truly began. We spend so much energy running from death that we forget to live. We accumulate possessions thinking they'll give us security. We chase achievements believing they'll grant us immortality. We build walls around our hearts to protect ourselves from loss. But what are we really protecting? A life half-lived, a heart that never fully opened. Every spiritual tradition speaks of dying before you die. This isn't about physical death, but about the death of illusion, the death of the false self, the death of everything that keeps us from experiencing the fullness of existence. When you let go of who you think you should be, who you pretend to be, what dies is not you, but the prison that confined you. The people who return from near-death experiences often speak of encountering a love so vast, so unconditional, that it shattered every concept they had of themselves. They realized they were never separate, never alone, never unloved. This love wasn't something they earned or deserved. It was their very nature, their essence. And this realization changed everything. What would you do differently if you truly understood that you're already in the process of dying? Would you waste another moment in resentment? Would you postpone that conversation with someone you love? Would you continue to live according to others' expectations rather than your own truth? The liberating power of mortality lies in its ability to strip away everything inessential. When you know your time is limited, you naturally gravitate toward what matters. You seek depth over surface, meaning over distraction, connection over isolation. You begin to live from your essence rather than your ego. Think of the ego as a structure built from fear, a fortress designed to protect us from the reality of impermanence. It tells us we need to be more, have more, achieve more to be worthy. It keeps us trapped in comparison, competition, and constant striving. But death is the great equalizer. In its presence, all ego structures crumble. What remains is what's real, what's eternal. This doesn't mean we should be reckless or nihilistic. Quite the opposite. When you truly understand that you're dying, every moment becomes sacred. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to express love. Every breath becomes a gift. You begin to live with a quality of attention and presence that transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. The awareness of death brings us face to face with a fundamental question: what truly matters? When people look back on their lives from their deathbed, they rarely regret the things they did. They regret the things they didn't do. They regret the words left unsaid, the love unexpressed, the dreams abandoned, the authentic self hidden behind masks of conformity. You're dying right now, and this is the most freeing truth you'll ever encounter. It means you don't have time for pretense. You don't have time to wait for the perfect moment. You don't have time to live someone else's idea of who you should be. Every second that passes is a call to authenticity, a summons to live from your deepest truth. Consider how much energy we waste trying to control the uncontrollable. We fight against change, resist aging, deny loss. But death teaches us the wisdom of surrender. Not surrender as defeat, but surrender as alignment with the natural flow of existence. When a wave realizes it's part of the ocean, does it fear returning to its source? Those who have glimpsed beyond death often speak of a profound realization. Consciousness doesn't end, it transforms. The body is temporary, but the essence of who we are transcends physical boundaries. This isn't just spiritual speculation. It's the lived experience of countless individuals who have returned from the threshold. What keeps us from living fully isn't death itself, but our relationship with it. When we see death as an enemy, we live in constant fear. When we see it, as a teacher, we live in constant wonder. The choice is ours in every moment. Are we contracting in fear or expanding in trust? The Japanese have a concept called mono-no-aware, the bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of all things. It's the recognition that beauty is intensified by its transience. A cherry blossom is more precious because it blooms for such a short time. A sunset is more magnificent because it will never happen exactly the same way again. Your life is like that cherry blossom, that sunset. Its beauty lies not despite its impermanence, but because of it. When you truly grasp this, something shifts. You stop postponing joy. You stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. You realize that this moment, with all its imperfections, is the only moment you have. Think about the last time you felt truly alive. It was probably when you stepped outside your comfort zone, when you took a risk, when you chose courage over comfort. Death whispers to us constantly, urging us to live boldly, to love fiercely, to create fearlessly. It's the voice that says, "What are you waiting for?" The irony is that the more we embrace our mortality, the more alive we become. When you stop running from death, you start running toward life. Every experience becomes richer, every connection deeper, every moment more precious. You begin to see that death isn't the end of the story. It's what gives the story meaning. Many who return from near-death experiences describe a life review where they not only relived their actions, but felt their impact on others. They experienced their life from the perspective of everyone they had touched. Every kindness was amplified, every hurt was felt deeply. This teaches us something profound about the nature of existence. We are all interconnected, and what we do to others, we do to ourselves. This interconnectedness means that your death is not just your own. It ripples through the web of existence, touching everyone and everything you've ever encountered. But so does your life. Every moment of authentic living, every act of genuine love, every expression of truth creates waves that extend far beyond what you can see or imagine. The fear of death often masks a deeper fear, the fear of truly living. It's easier to sleepwalk through life, to numb ourselves with distractions, to play it safe, but death won't let us hide forever. It keeps calling us back to what's real, what's essential, what's eternal. What would it mean to die before you die? It would mean letting go of everything that isn't truly you. It would mean releasing the stories that limit you, the beliefs that confine you, the identities that no longer serve you. It would mean stepping into the unknown with trust, embracing uncertainty as the gateway to possibility. The mystics tell us that in every ending is a beginning. The death of the caterpillar is the birth of the butterfly. The death of the seed is the birth of the tree. What needs to die in you for your true self to emerge? What are you holding on to that's preventing your transformation? As you sit with these questions, notice what arises. Notice the resistance, the fear, the longing. All of these are gateways to deeper understanding. Death isn't just teaching you about ending, it's teaching you about beginning. Every moment is both a death and a birth, an ending and a beginning. The most profound gift of mortality awareness is presence. When you know your time is limited, you naturally become more present. You notice the texture of life, the subtle beauty in ordinary moments. You become less interested in the stories in your head and more interested in the reality before you. This presence is what those who return from death describe as the most significant change in their lives. They no longer take anything for granted. A simple meal becomes a feast. A conversation becomes communion. A walk in nature becomes a pilgrimage. They understand that heaven isn't somewhere else. It's hidden in plain sight, revealed when we have eyes to see. But you don't need a near-death experience to access this wisdom. The awareness that you're dying right now can serve the same purpose. It can wake you up from the trance of ordinary consciousness, the sleepwalking state where we mistake the trivial for the important, the temporary for the permanent. Consider how much of your life is spent in mental time travel, reliving the past or imagining the future. Meanwhile, life is happening right here, right now. Death teaches us that the past is gone and the future is not guaranteed. All we have is this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. When you truly understand this, you stop living in the abstract and start living in the actual. The question isn't whether you're going to die, but whether you're going to live before you do. Are you going to wait until your deathbed to realize what matters? Are you going to postpone authenticity until it's too late? Or are you going to let the reality of death inspire you to live fully now? There's a beautiful paradox in accepting death. The more you embrace it, the less you fear it. When you stop seeing death as the enemy, it becomes the ally that helps you prioritize, that cuts through confusion, that points you toward truth. It becomes the friend that won't let you waste your precious life. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they're people who live with a certain fearlessness, who aren't paralyzed by the opinion of others, who follow their own path regardless of convention. What gives them this courage? Often, it's a deep awareness of mortality. They know their time is limited, so they refuse to spend it living someone else's life. This is the liberation that death offers. Freedom from the prison of others' expectations, freedom from the tyranny of the trivial, freedom from the illusion of permanence. When you know you're dying, you naturally align with what's authentic, what's meaningful, what's true. But this freedom comes with responsibility. If you're dying right now, then so is everyone else. Your words, your actions, your presence matter more than you know. Every interaction could be your last with that person. Every moment could be the one they remember forever. How does this change how you show up in the world? The Tibetan Buddhist tradition speaks of death as the ultimate teacher. They practice dying consciously, preparing for the moment of transition, not with fear, but with curiosity and openness. They understand that how we relate to death determines how we relate to life. If we approach death with awareness and acceptance, we approach life the same way. What would it mean to practice dying consciously right now? It would mean being fully present to this moment, releasing attachment to outcome, opening your heart completely. It would mean living as if this breath could be your last, not with panic but with profound appreciation. Those who have experienced ego death through meditation, psychedelics, or spontaneous awakening often describe it similarly to near-death experiences. The boundaries of the self dissolve, revealing a vast spaciousness and infinite awareness that was always there beneath the surface of personality. This is what death points to, not annihilation but transformation, not ending but returning to source. The fear of death is ultimately the fear of losing control. We spend our lives trying to manage, predict, secure. But death reminds us that control is an illusion. The deepest peace comes not from controlling life, but from trusting it, not from resisting change, but from flowing with it. When you truly accept that you're dying, something miraculous happens. The background anxiety that pervades most people's lives begins to dissolve. The constant worry about the future loses its grip. You realize that security doesn't come from circumstances, but from your relationship with uncertainty. This doesn't mean becoming passive or fatalistic. Quite the opposite. When you accept death, you become more engaged with life, not less. You take inspired action, not from fear, but from love. You create, not to leave a legacy, but to express your essence. You connect, not to avoid loneliness, but to celebrate unity. The awareness of death also transforms how we relate to others. When you know that everyone you meet is dying, just like you, compassion arises naturally. The petty judgments fall away. The need to be right becomes less important than the need to be kind. You realize that we're all in this together, all facing the same ultimate destiny. This shared mortality is what binds us as human beings. Beneath all our differences of race, religion, culture, and belief, we share this fundamental condition. We're all temporary travelers in this world, all subject to the same laws of impermanence. When we remember this, the walls that separate us begin to crumble. But death doesn't just connect us to other humans, it connects us to all of life. Every plant, every animal, every star is subject to the same cycle of birth and death. We're part of a vast cosmic dance where nothing is permanent but everything is interconnected. This cosmic perspective is what many near-death experiencers describe when they speak of understanding the purpose of life. They see that we're here not to accumulate or achieve, but to experience and evolve. Every challenge, every joy, every loss is part of the curriculum of soul development. When you view life through this lens, even suffering takes on new meaning. The difficulties that seem so overwhelming from our limited perspective are revealed as opportunities for growth, catalysts for awakening. Death itself becomes not an end, but a graduation, a transition to whatever comes next in the eternal journey of consciousness. But you don't have to wait for physical death to graduate. Every moment offers the opportunity to die to the small self and awaken to the larger reality. Every breath can be a practice of letting go. Every heartbeat a reminder of impermanence. Every interaction a chance to choose love over fear. The most common regret of the dying is that they didn't live a life true to themselves. They conformed to others' expectations, followed prescribed paths, suppressed their authentic expression. But you still have time. You're dying, yes, but you're also still alive. The question is, what will you do with the time you have left? This question becomes even more poignant when you realize that time itself is an illusion. From the perspective of eternity, your entire life is happening in a single moment. The child you were, the adult you are, the elder you might become, all exist simultaneously in the timelessness. Death reveals this truth by showing us that linear time is just one way of perceiving reality. Those who return from death often speak of experiencing this timelessness. They describe being in a realm where past, present, and future merge into one eternal moment. They understand that who they really are transcends the temporal story of their life. This understanding brings profound peace because it reveals that nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. But how do we access this peace while still embodied, still caught in the apparent drama of daily life? The key is to use death as a meditation, a constant reminder of what's real and what's illusory. When you're stuck in traffic, remember you're dying. When you're arguing with someone, remember they're dying too. When you're worried about the future, remember that the future is not guaranteed. This remembrance isn't meant to be depressing, but liberating. It cuts through the mental noise and brings you back to presence. It helps you distinguish between what matters and what doesn't. It gives you permission to let go of the unnecessary and embrace the essential. The essential is always simple: love, presence, truth, connection, creation, service. These are the things that death cannot touch, because they're expressions of the eternal. When you align your life with these essentials, you're already living beyond death, already participating in immortality. Consider how different your relationships would be if you truly understood that everyone you know is dying. Would you hold on to grudges? Would you withhold affection? Would you wait for the perfect moment to express your love? Or would you recognize that this moment is all we have, that tomorrow is promised to no one? The awareness of death transforms. Relationships from transactions to sacraments. Every encounter becomes precious, every conversation potentially the last. This doesn't create anxiety, but rather deepens presence. You listen more carefully, speak more truthfully, touch more tenderly. This transformation extends to your relationship with yourself. When you know you're dying, self-judgment loses its power. Why waste precious moments criticizing yourself when you could be celebrating the miracle of existence? Why compare yourself to others when your journey is uniquely yours? Why postpone self-acceptance when time is running out? The liberation of mortality awareness also frees us from the cult of youth and the fear of aging. Every stage of life has its beauty, its wisdom, its gifts. The lines on your face tell stories of laughter and tears. The gray in your hair speaks of experience and endurance. Your changing body is evidence of a life lived, not something to be ashamed of. In fact, many spiritual traditions see aging as a blessing, a natural preparation for the ultimate transition. As the body weakens, attachment to the physical naturally loosens. As memory fades, identification with personal history softens. As energy diminishes, the pull of external achievement weakens. All of this can be seen as nature's way of preparing us for letting go. But you don't have to wait for old age to begin this preparation. The awareness that you're dying now can initiate the same process of release. You can start loosening your grip on identity, softening your attachment to outcomes, reducing your investment in the temporary. This isn't about becoming detached or indifferent, but about discovering what remains when everything else falls away. What remains is awareness itself, the consciousness that witnesses all experience, but is touched by none. This is what the mystics mean when they speak of dying before you die. It's the recognition of your true nature, as the awareness in which all of life appears and disappears. From this perspective, death loses its sting. If you are awareness itself, then what dies? The body returns to earth. Thoughts dissolve into silence, but awareness remains eternal and untouched. This isn't just philosophical speculation, but the direct experience of countless individuals who have touched the edge of death and returned. The fear of death is really the fear of the unknown. But what if the unknown is not empty but full? What if it's not darkness but light? What if it's not separation but unity? Those who have glimpsed beyond the veil consistently report an overwhelming sense of love, peace, and understanding. They describe coming home to a reality more real than what we call reality. This homecoming is available to you now. Every time you drop into deep presence, every time you transcend the thinking mind, every time you touch the silence between thoughts, you're experiencing a little death, a mini transition from form to formlessness. These moments are practice runs for the ultimate letting go. The irony is that the more you practice dying, the more alive you become. When you're not afraid of death, you're not afraid of life. You can take risks, express truth, love without reservation. You can dance on the edge of the unknown because you understand that the unknown is not your enemy, but your source. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive. They were probably moments of complete surrender, when you let go, of control and trusted the flow. Maybe it was falling in love, creating art, experiencing nature, or facing a challenge that demanded everything from you. In these moments, the fear of death disappears because you're so immersed in life that death becomes irrelevant. This is the secret that death whispers. The way to overcome the fear of death is to live so fully that death becomes just another experience, another adventure, another doorway. When you've extracted the nectar from each moment, when you've loved with your whole heart, when you've given your gifts freely, death loses its power to frighten. But living fully doesn't mean living frantically. It's not about cramming as many experiences as possible into your remaining time. It's about depth, not breadth. It's about being fully present to whatever is happening, whether it's washing dishes or watching a sunset. When you're truly present, every moment contains eternity. The awareness that you're dying can also heal your relationship with regret. Regret is only possible when you believe you had or will have more time. When you accept that your time is limited and always was, regret transforms into wisdom. Your mistakes become teachings, your failures become foundations for growth, your losses become openings to deeper understanding. This doesn't mean bypassing grief or pretending everything. Here's perfect. The awareness of mortality includes the full spectrum of human emotion, but it holds it all in a larger context, a wider perspective that sees the beauty in the pain, the growth in the struggle, the love in the loss. As you integrate this awareness more deeply, you might notice a shift in your priorities. Things that once seemed important lose their urgency. Things you once ignored reveal their significance. You might find yourself drawn to simplicity, to authenticity, to direct experience rather than conceptual understanding. This simplification is not about deprivation, but about essence. When you know you're dying, you naturally gravitate toward what nourishes your soul. You seek depth over surface, being over doing, presence over productivity. You realize that the richest life is not the one with the most experiences, but the one most fully experienced. The ultimate gift of mortality awareness is freedom. Freedom from the past, freedom from the future, freedom from the stories that limit you, freedom from the fear that constrains you. When you truly accept that you're dying, you're free to live. Not someday, not when conditions are perfect, not when you're ready, but now, in this moment, with all its imperfection and beauty. So, here's the invitation. Let death be your teacher, your guide, your liberator. Let it strip away everything false and reveal everything true. Let it show you what matters and release you from what doesn't. Let it wake you up to the miracle of this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. You're dying, and that's the best news you could receive. It means you're alive. It means you have this moment. It means you can choose. Will you sleepwalk through your remaining time, or will you wake up? Will you live in fear, or will you live in love? Will you postpone your truth, or will you express it now? The choice is yours, and it's available in every moment. Death is not waiting for you at the end of your life. It's here with you now, inviting you to live fully, love deeply, and let go gracefully. This is the liberation that mortality offers, the freedom that comes from embracing the truth of impermanence. As you go forward from this moment, carry this awareness with you. Let it inform your choices, guide your actions, deepen your presence. You're dying, yes, but you're also being born in every moment. The question is, who are you choosing to become? What are you choosing to express? How are you choosing to love? The answer to these questions is your life, your legacy, your gift to the world. Make it count. Not because you have to, but because you can. Not because death is coming, but because life is here. Right here, right now, in this precious, unrepeatable moment.